David Stone is a registered representative on Lincoln Financial Advisors Corp., a broker-dealer member SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. Stone Consulting Group is not an affiliate of Lincoln Financial Advisors.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mike Gray Real Estate Hour, heard every weekend on AM 1380. I'm Mike Gray from Morris Williams Realty. My co-host is David Stone from the Stone Consulting Group.
Hello, everybody. Great to be back.
It is great having you here. And we had on last week, David, and we were talking about generational wealth, and that generated a lot of questions from our listeners.
Yeah, it did. And it's really interesting. There was a study done a few years back by Wilmington Trust Company out in Delaware. And they did a study, and they found out that 90% of the wealth of the people that were surveyed, it was gone by the third generation.
So give me a definition of generational wealth.
So generational wealth, you'll have, for example, estate planning is preparing the assets that you've accumulated throughout your life to be passed on to the next generation, right?
Correct.
So you got that's estate planning. Well, generational wealth planning is actually preparing the next generation to receive those assets. So in that study, they found that grandma and grandpa give money to their children when they pass away.
Correct.
And then when it goes to the third generation, it's gone. 90% of the wealth is gone.
So a lot of people must assume that generation wealth means wealth that I will spend.
Exactly, and that's the problem, right? It's like trying to provide what kind of a legacy that someone wants to provide to their heirs, and it's more than just money. But I mean that's like the very first part of this study that they did.
And part of generation wealth too is also teaching your children the value of having money work for you.
Absolutely. So you have your children that are being taught that or not taught that, and that's the issue or the challenge and the problem. You know, there was a movie, I don't know if anybody remembers it. It's like 10 years ago. It was called The Ultimate Gift. And James Garner was in it, and basically he had his grandson. He was worth $1 billion.
Okay.
So this is a really big estate. So he was worth $1 billion, and he had given us a measly pittance. Who knows? I don't know. To all of us, regular people, would be a lot of money. But he gave a little bit to his children, and then he held all this back, and he had his grandson, whose name was Jason in the movie. And if you haven't, go. I don't know. Maybe it's on what's the Netflix, right? You can go to Netflix. Okay. So maybe it's called The Ultimate Gift. It's a really great movie. It's kind of low budget, but you know, it gives the point. But the point being that he put this. James Garner was the grandfather, and he had passed away, and he put this grandson through all these different things that he needed to do, and ultimately he received the greatest benefit when he was giving to others. And so we've had conversations about your background, my background, and the benefits of giving to others.
Correct.
And so when I think about what you want to teach your children, whether they're 12 or 52, having them have that education is so critical and helping them. So Stephen Covey, who you may have recalled, he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right?
Correct.
Everybody's heard of that book. But he wrote another book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families. And he and basically he put himself in a situation where he was in front of a bunch of people that lost their jobs in the late 2000s. And he basically gave 3 specific things that people should be doing to kind of prepare their family to make good choices.
Okay.
So one was to write a family mission statement.
All right.
You know, he's big on mission statements.
Yes,
If you read Stephen Covey's book. So in fact, his son Sean was a missionary with me in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 80s. So anyway, he said, write a family mission statement. And so really he wants the parents, and that would be you and me, to identify, well, what kind of a family do we want to be? And so you can be the family that just blows all your money or doesn't do anything for others, or you can be the ones that really care about other people. So, and our listeners, I know this is kind of more of a conservative talk radio station, and so I think most of them probably are more concerned about other people.
Correct.
And so really define what kind of family you want to be, what kind of feelings you want in your home, things like that. How do you want to build relationships? Get everyone involved in your family. So that's one thing he did. The second thing he said was that you should hold a family weekly meeting. And you know what? before this was written, my dad and mom held a family weekly meeting for us every Monday night.
Oh, really? See,
Ever since I was a little kid.
See, that'd be a new concept for me.
Yeah. So and it was great. Now, I will tell you, and I've done the same thing with my kids. Now, most of my kids are out of the house. I got one left, Colton.
Okay.
He's my 16-year-old, and we love having him around, so he keeps us young, feeling young, right? But having that family weekling once a week. And then the last thing that Steve Covey said is he said to remember the emotional bank account. Now, I don't know if you remember that from the book, but similar to a regular bank account, he said you want to make deposits and withdrawals from each of your family relationships. In my family, my dad and mom would just come up and give us a big hug, and we'd say, "I want you to fill my love bucket." In this case, I want you to fill my love bank account.
Right.
So having that kind of a relationship, and I know not all dads and moms are huggy, but it's important for you to treat the family that way.
There are different ways to show that and different ways to
Absolutely.
express it, but being very deliberate and making sure that the other person understands it and receives it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So those are some of the basic things. Then another thing I'll bring up is the type of legacy that you leave for your family. Really, kind of, it starts with you. So as a parent, it's like, what kind of things are you doing? It's not do what I say, it's do what I do.
Correct.
Right? So I mentioned in our last show that my dad and his 3 brothers were Eagle Scouts. Right? So in fact, in my book, in chapter 9 of my book, I have a whole chapter on this topic of generational wealth planning. So in that, there's actually a picture of me and my 2 brothers who are also Eagle Scouts.
Right.
And then my oldest son is an Eagle Scout, and then my son Colton just finished his Eagle project up in Penryn this last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, and so now he'll become an Eagle Scout, and so that's an ongoing legacy.
Right.
So
now you mentioned your book. It calls The Power of a Plan.
Yes, that's right.
And we've talked about on your segment about this book. I have read it. I find it very informative. It's probably one of the better financial planning books for a layperson who understands enough to say, I need to have some type of guidance when it comes to my planning. And I really, really appreciated that. And now in your book, we oftentimes, for our listeners out there, like for the first 3 callers, we will give away a free book. So I'm going to put you on the spot again this weekend. Will you be willing to give away some books this weekend?
So they do know it's on Amazon, right?
Well, I know,
Barnes and Noble.
and you can pay for it on Amazon. But our listeners have.
That's true.
They're sitting there and they're listening to our show. I always like to kind of give them a little bit of a perk. So
Special attention.
So the first 3 callers, 530-431-8586, you will send them a free copy of a book called The Power of a Plan.
We'll do it. The Power of a Plan.
And the Generation Wealth is just one chapter. There's chapters on real estate investment.
Absolutely.
Planning, saving, and it's just a well-rounded book, and it just reflects well upon your philosophy and how you treat people, how you should treat your finances, and long-range planning, David.
Absolutely. The key to the book really is that it's got a lot of stories. It's not meant to be really technical, though there are concepts in there, I bet, that most of your listeners have probably never heard of.
Yeah, there are some great concepts, and how you explain some of those concepts and how you can apply them are really easy to understand.
Thank you.
And I think you've done a nice job kind of just laying it all out there. So first 3 callers, 530-431-8586. I'm going to twist David's arm and make him send you a free book.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Go get Marianne busy, and we'll get him out.
Marianne works in David's office, and she's the person who actually does. David says okay, and then she has to actually do the work.
She gets to do it, and I get to pay for him.
So tell us again. So most of our listeners know you as David, as our show, David Stone from the Stone Consulting Group. Give me just a bird's eye view of what the Stone Consulting Group is and what they do.
Well, as personal CFOs, that's what we do. So as a personal CFO, a personal chief financial officer, then we are going to be the ones to work with them and collaborate with them, help them and assist them with their other advisors. So we'll work with their accountant.
Right.
We'll work with their attorney. And if they don't have those advisors, then we'll work and assist them to do that. So a personal CFO does things for people personally that a CFO would do for a small business.
Correct.
Or a big business for that. So everything from investments to benefits, for example, that you would have, insurance. So we're involved in all aspects. We help clients with the real estate piece, as you know, as it relating to 1031 exchanges and helping them and assisting that. The financial planning that is done can help bring someone an understanding of where they stand.
Right. And we put together a team of people around us. So for whatever our listeners need as they come meet with you,
Absolutely.
you don't say, well, go find somebody. We say we have somebody all lined up who can help you in this area. For example, one of your clients needed to know the value of some of his duplexes.
That's right.
They called me, and I'll have that valuation all done for them, and so they can kind of go back and say, all right, here's the value. Now what are we going to do with our long-range planning in my financial portfolio, knowing that this is the value of this real estate portion of my financial portfolio.
Right. And how's that cash flow coming from those rentals actually going to be impacting my ability to meet my financial objectives in retirement and beyond?
Right. And in this case, too, when we were looking at some of the duplexes, too, one of the things I will look at is the long-term maintenance. You know, how well have the units been maintained? Has anything been deferred?
Right.
What bills may be coming just around the corner? Because that does also affect future planning, you know,
Absolutely.
and the value. And if you want, is this the time to, perhaps sell that real estate and exchange it into another type of a real estate portfolio, or perhaps a different type of financial investment? Or is this the time to spend the money to kind of improve it, and we're good for the next 5 to 10 years because that cash flow is really strong, the location is good, and we're in a market of appreciation? So having people around, I send clients to you when it comes to financial planning. If they need help with their real estate, you send them back to me.
Right.
You have any questions, give me a call, 530-431-8586. I'll put you in touch with David. He does a great job, folks.
Thank you,
He's
Mike.
a great financial planner, great CFO. Again, 530-431-8586. We're going to be back right after this break.